Hello, nerds! Nerds for Humanity. If you're interested in the latest on the Trump versus Biden presidential election, we're talking about polls, money raised, betting odds, search terms. This is the video for you. Second half of this video, I'm also going to talk about the latest on the coronavirus in terms of new cases, trends by country, and that'll be it. So lots of charts, lots of data. If this is your kind of thing, feel free to subscribe at any time if you're new to this channel as you see some of the data that we're going to show. So let's get right into it. We'll start with presidential polls. Blue is Biden, red is Trump. Now this is the last 6 months. Back in November of last year, you had Biden up by 10. And then you had Biden up only by 5 at the end of January. And now you've got Biden up still by 5. So Trump is pretty much holding on to this low 40%. Biden's hovering around high 40s, almost 50 at some point, just beyond 50 back at the end of March. So what's interesting here is both of them seem to be losing popularity. Look at this. Trump almost dropped to under 40, and Biden dropped from 51 to 47 in mid-April. So nobody liked either candidate in mid-April. And then here you see Trump starting to recover from early May to mid-May. And then just recently, he took a little bit of a dip towards the end of May. So TLDR, this is going to be a nail biter for all of you who can't stand Trump. You need to accept the fact that pretty much just under half the country is sticking with him through thick and thin. And for those of you who can't imagine Biden being the next president, well, you need to accept the fact that more people are saying they like Biden than they like Trump, but it's not that many more, and that gap is not growing, even though one could argue that Trump's getting a lot of bad publicity lately. I think the problem is that Biden isn't getting any publicity. All right, so now let's look at the money race. So this is based on the latest FEC reporting through April 30th. First of all, let's just acknowledge that Mike Bloomberg spent $1 billion. And I'm not sure what he has to show for it. You could imagine that $1 billion could have been spent, well, propping up Biden, or maybe supporting a Yang, or Buttigieg or Klobuchar, but he spent it on himself. And, he kind of got his butt kicked on Super Tuesday. That's Bloomberg, $1 billion right here. This dude raised $1 billion from himself, and then he pretty much spent all of it. He has $1 million left in the bank. Trump, on the other hand, so far this cycle has raised just under $275 million. He's already spent almost $200 million, and he's got $100 million in the bank. Biden has only raised under $200 million, so right now Trump has a $100 million advantage. Biden has spent $120, and now he only has $57 million in the bank. And since this used to be the Nerds for Yang channel before we crossed over to Nerds for Humanity, let's look at Andrew Yang. He raised $41 million. And he spent it. But when it comes to Yang, for the money that he raised, given his name recognition, the fact that he is now perhaps as much of a national figure as Beto O'Rourke or Jay Inslee, speaks to the potency of that Yang gang. TLDR on the money is that Trump has about $100 million more. They're spending a little more than Biden. And let's see, percent from small donors. Trump has more small donors than Biden. Not looking great for Biden. Hopefully the Democratic Party will find some renewed sense of enthusiasm and energy about this race. It seems like the Democratic Party right now is more of a anti-Trump than a pro-Biden vibe. But, maybe when Biden picks his running mate or, emerges from his basement, things will change. Next, here are betting odds. So what do the gamblers think? Forget about the polls. We know that polls sometimes, they have their own flaws. So people who have money on the line, they actually think that if you had to bet on one versus the other, that Trump has a 48% chance of becoming the next president, and Biden has a smaller chance, 42%. And if you just look in the last day, still 48, 42, and, pretty stable. Not a lot of movement there other than the fact that gamblers think Trump has a better chance than Biden if you go head to head. Now, if you go by, and nationally, if you go by state and electoral college, it actually is pretty favorable for Biden, assuming he's the nominee. And here you have Biden / the Democrats coming in with 288 electoral votes, which is more than they need to win. And where is the action? Where do the gamblers have the most heartburn? They're really not sure about Florida. That's a 52-48, slight Republican leaning, pretty much tied. They've got heartburn about North Carolina. There'll be a lot of battle going on in Florida and North Carolina. And then a little bit of heartburn in Wisconsin, but probably a Democratic state. In Ohio, pretty strong Republican. Iowa, strong Republican. Arizona, could be interesting. Democrats are ahead, but Republicans are not that far behind. And then the rest of the country is pretty much either dark blue or dark red. There's not a lot of debate within the country. California, 94% chance Democrat, but North Dakota, 94.5% chance Republican. So it's all going to probably focus on maybe Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida. So if you're a candidate raising money, you're getting ready for World War III in Florida and North Carolina. Those will be huge, huge battlegrounds. That's the election betting odds. Let's see who the gamblers think Biden will pick as his VP. Most likely Harris, with second being Klobuchar. And over time, let's say the last month, you'll see that Harris really picked up and now is pretty stable. Then Klobuchar, and then third would be Warren. Personally, seems like Harris is a smart move. It's a more diverse ticket. I personally prefer Klobuchar, but if you wanted to just play chess and assume that Harris may activate more minority voters, then you may have to go with her. For Klobuchar, her advantage is it makes the ticket feel less risky and maybe less polarizing. Maybe Klobuchar could pull over some former Obama, then switch to Trump voters. Not sure. Of course, we here on this channel were rooting for Andrew Yang, but Joe Biden, in all his infinite wisdom, has committed to only picking a female for his running mate. So Andrew Yang does not qualify, even though I think a lot of us would argue he's saying a lot of things that now more and more people are saying, but he's been saying them, for the last year. Anyhow, let's look at Google search trends. So there are more people searching on Google for Donald Trump than there are searching for Biden, by a pretty large margin, by a factor of almost 6-1. In terms of what they're searching for, a lot of action around Biden's call with Poroshenko, the phone call that got leaked Biden tapes, Biden nickname for Trump. Basically, Biden and the Ukraine is a huge one. For Donald Trump, there's a lot of searching for the president's struggle with morbid obesity. Pelosi calling him obese. Trump taking hydroxychloroquine. More obesity. More hydroxy. Trump-Obama portrait. More Trump BMI. So there you go. That's what people are searching for. Now let's switch gears and talk about coronavirus. This is a chart of worldwide new cases of COVID-19. And as you can see, the most scary time was probably March, where every day there were more new cases than the previous day. If you look at April and May, it's pretty much plateaued at around just under 100,000 new cases per day globally. Of course, there's some problem here with testing, and if you're not testing, you're not going to report new cases. But I think generally countries are probably testing more now than they have before, and yet the number of new cases is flat. So this is very encouraging. Some people are going to argue, well, that's because of social distancing and lockdowns. Other people are going to say, well, this means there was no problem to begin with. It's very hard to say, but one thing you could do is look at Sweden. And in Sweden's case, Sweden has not done a ton of hardcore locking down. They have done their social distancing. And if you look at their daily cases, it's also plateauing. So, you know, this is an argument for potentially maybe that Sweden model where you don't completely lock down the economy, but you take active measures to increase social distancing is kind of that Goldilocks policy. Hard to say, but let's look at all the countries compared. The president often talks about the U.S. being number one on number of tests, which if you see here is true. There are more tests done in the U.S. than in Russia and in Germany. Obviously, the U.S. has a much larger population than those countries. When you do tests per 1 million people, let's see, is the U.S. number one? No, the U.S. is number, where are we? Number 34 in tests per 1 million. And then if you look at number of new cases, number of total cases, the U.S. is number one. The number of new cases, Russia is number one. Number of deaths, U.S. is number one. And then in terms of number of new deaths, right now Mexico is number one. So TLDR, I would say America, we have the most cases. We are doing the most testing. We're not doing the most testing when you normalize for a number of people. So just be careful when you hear people share statistics like, well, the U.S. has the most tests per day. Well, yeah, of course, we have more tests per day than, you know, let's say Turkey or Spain, but we're also 300 million people. That said, I think the good news when it comes to these statistics is that, like many other places, we in America have started to get this thing under control. Here is a chart of the number of daily new cases just in the U.S. As you can see, it wasn't a whole lot being detected in February and March, but then it really got kind of crazy in March and early April. But since then, not only have things been fairly flat, they've actually been declining. So maybe in this debate between whether we should stay in lockdown forever or open up tomorrow, like many things, the answer is probably in between, that the numbers suggest that it's time to kind of turn that dimmer switch up. And hopefully we can do that in a measured and systematic way. So if this kind of video was useful to you and you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. Basically, Nerds for Humanity, I do a lot of interviews with people running for office, asking them hard questions about who they are, why they're running, what they would do. But I also do these weekly data deep dives where I get into a bunch of charts and facts and try and take an objective look about issues that are of interest to the country. If you have been a subscriber for a while, thank you for your support. And let me also thank our channel members who are actually helping fund this content, providing for a lot of the resources to invest in the software and services to make this channel possible. So specifically, let's start with our executive vice president level. Thank you, Kristen Slevin. You've always been a supporter of this channel. Appreciate your continued support. Next level would be vice president. Thank you, Chris Chan, Laura Lane, Fat Lamb, JM Sap, VLAM Lock Win. Next level is hardcore. Thank you, Jesse Lago, Phoenix Congress, Koa Win, Landline, DK, Tracy Mesa, David, Adrian, Gene, Chad, and Mike. And finally, we have our verified nerds. Thank you to Nell Nieves, Elizabeth Norris, Soldier One, David, Emerald DX, Mercy Ann Andes, Miles Patton, Verily Gray, Doris Emmerich, Shake and Make, Mike CK, Sophia Chen, Jadwiga Basecki, Gail Machado, James Johnson, Hitachi, Your Mommin, Peter Knight, Arez, Albert Tom, Brandon David, Sugar Sweet, Brian Kitching, Lisa Childress, and Sydney P., our oldest member, continuous member. And in terms of our newest member, welcome to Nell Nieves and Elizabeth Norris and Jesse Lago and Phoenix Congress, who have joined in the last couple of weeks. Really appreciate it. And oh, look, it looks like Chris Chan and Laura Lane recently became vice president. So thanks for watching. And if this is useful to you, please like and share. Comment if you have any new video ideas you want me to try and put together. And in the meantime, you guys keep it real. Goodbye, nerds.